Hello, welcome back everyone. Thank you for joining me for this video. I've had a tiring week to say the least. I haven't had any videos up since last weekend, and as you know, last week and the week before even, it's been exceptional times to have so many wonderful guests on the show. I was a little tired over the week, a little overworked and everything else happening in life, and I was a bit annoyed at myself last night for not making a video that I wanted to do, especially about the Eurovision and this Aurora Borealis, the Northern Lights. Now, you're wondering how on earth could you link the Eurovision to these Northern Lights happening all over the world because of the biggest solar storm in the last 20 plus years. And also, something to do a little bit with Russia and Our Lady. I've had some questions asked about it already. Are you wondering what I'm talking about? Well, I'm about to tell you. And it's worked out even better actually, because last night I wanted to watch the Eurovision for one particular reason. It was the singer from Ireland, Bambi Thug. And I was annoyed at myself for not getting the video up in time when everyone's on the hype of the Eurovision. There's a lot of controversy hitting the news all the time about who's staying, who's pulling out because of Israel on the show. I have to say Israel's song was quite catchy, so was Germany's. But it's not something I tend to watch as the Eurovision. But I'm glad I waited until now to do the video, because it wasn't just Bambi Thug that really left me with my eyebrows raised in shock and even horror. It was many of the acts, the whole show itself. Now, to me, in a nutshell, Europe just showed the best it can offer in music, and all those acts made it very clear from all those 20 plus nations that the West has fallen. Morally, spiritually, you name it. Whatever was seen as once upon a time as standards of morality, manners, dignity, it's all gone. And that's what showed me last night was the fall of the West. Though, not that we needed the Eurovision to show it to us, but one thing that stood out more than ever is this growing trend, unashamed, unworried trend of celebrities coming out with more devilish behaviour. For the past 20 years we've had force-fed LGBT, LGBTQIA. Now there's a number 2 at the front. I can't keep up. I've never been able to keep up. But that was obviously manifest in a massive way. And Eurovision made it clear with all the rainbow colours and everything else. Many of the acts showing a lot of flesh, male flesh in particular. It was demonic, it was sexually immoral, and I'm just thinking to myself, this is how the West has fallen, and at the same time we're under great threat of Christian civilization, the womb of Christianity of Europe, and in America, Canada, everywhere is just a moral decay. It's an orchestrated moral decay for the past 20 years especially. But what I'm seeing now, ever since the last couple of years with the likes of Lady Gaga, Madonna's always been around, and then Sam Smith, whatever happened there when it's okay to pick up in the Grammys and dress up as the devil and put on an absolute clear show of where it's just satanic. And then of course we come to a couple other things I've got up here on the screen share I want to just show you. Look at this one with Madonna featuring Lady Gaga, the crucifix hanging from her nose and her mouth, the bloody devil, pray for Mary. And then of course you just put in Lady Gaga satanic performances, you put in Taylor Swift ones and you'll get the same idea. Taylor Swift here on other pages accused of performing satanic rituals at her concerts. And as you see down here in the screenshot, it's young girls especially that are going with their mothers to these concerts. And this is coming of course from Shane, one of the boy band members of the boy band Boyzone, who himself admitted dabbling in the occult and Satanism back in the 90s and so on. Thankfully he's converted back to his Catholic roots. And with Adam Smith on his little devilish thing last year, the Church of Satan calls his and Kim Petras' Grammys performance nothing particularly special. That stood out for me actually because remember on this channel we've had a couple of hours worth of interviews given by Zachary King. Not only was he part of the Church of Satan, he was the top high wizard, one of a maximum of 10 in the entire planet, doing high-end, multi-billion-dollar spells for those with the money and those with the hunger for the world's attention and success. And these types of levels of people in the Church of Satan are looking at all these little minions of Taylor Swift's and Sam Smith's and everybody else, and they're just saying, nothing special here. Are they stupid enough to realise that they're nothing special in the eyes of those that are doing the evil? But why are they constantly doing it? As if to get attention, give me more success, give me more power. Watch Zachary King telling you exactly how that comes about, and you might think twice to take your little daughter or your child to any of their concerts. When Eurovision came on last night, we had one country singing about no rules with a guy walking about naked. We had our own UK guy, whatever his name is, I don't pay much attention to him. It was like a gay orgy on stage. But with the amount of sexual immorality, this is on a stage that's shaped in a cross, which stood out to me as well. And Switzerland, who won it, it was all about going to heaven, coming back, breaking the code. Listen to the lyrics of some of those songs. I'm not having it on the channel, but I do have an exceptional little bit of Bambi Thug. And apologies in advance if this little 10-20 second worth of footage disturbs you, but this is reality. I'm going to play it in a second. But all this sexual immorality with no shame whatsoever just shows how fast the Western world has fallen from grace and then some. It shows you the moral decay. It shows you the breaking up and destruction of civil society because it's families that are being destroyed through this. The innocents especially, the young kids that are taking all this in. Say a quick blessing to yourself before I play Bambi Thug. You're not going to see or hear much of it. But after all the sexual issues and morality issues, here's something that goes a bit beyond into the darker side. Let's play it here.
Do you know what makes me special? I'm a queer. Woo! And I'm a witch!
The pretties in your bed always overestimate you. I thought I could diver the thoughts in my head, the places I touch when lying in bed.
Yeah. You can see there she's even doing the pentagram and doing witchy things. That's why I don't want it too much on the screen. But we had live pause, my wife and I, and we're about half an hour behind. So when we came in, sat down to watch it and see. Some performances were alright, but the majority were just sexually perverted. And then we had this dark, dark side that she wasn't holding back on. But like I say, those little things stand out as well. I'm overthinking it. The cross stage, the pentagram on the cross, the fact that people are lying about half naked, some were full naked below, although you never saw it on TV because of the choreography, but it was clear the guy never had anything on. The fact that you had the UK act where two men were groping each other and all the rest of it, all on the cross stage. And then Switzerland, who won it, who went to heaven, came back, broke the code, that was the name of the song and stuff. I thought he was wearing something that looked like it was an upside down cross. I wasn't sure, but it did catch my eye. And then at the very end, once the song was over, he gave attention to what he was wearing around his neck on the chain for the first time in the entire act. And at the very end, he rips it off. I'm sure, or I think it was something to symbolise the upside down cross. So it's not just the shock of Sam Smith from last year at the Grammys doing his devilish act. It's not the fact that it's just this one coming from Ireland now doing what she's doing, Bambi Thug. It's the fact that they're coming more and more obvious. It's like evil's no longer hiding. There's some great videos out there when you look back to ex-Hollywood producer or an ex-stuntman or an actress or someone has blew the lid on things that were happening way, way back, even as far as the 50s or something, back in time when Walt Disney was alive, apparently as a top stonecutter. You know what I'm talking about there. Even the story on Larry King years ago with the adult Shirley Temple, who was always a favourite once upon a time as the child actress, and all she said about the sexual proclivities happening amongst the producers and the men, even one trying to advance onto her as the young girl. And we're hearing more and more stories from Jeffrey Epstein's Isle, the P. Diddy arrests, all the controversies, all the named actors and actresses and singers and anyone else whom we have been watching for a long time on TV or listening to them for years with their songs. But it was always like there was something hidden under the carpet. This world, this satanic stuff that Zachary King explained so well, no way can that be real. The shock horror of that reality is too much for normal people like us to take, probably. But I would say in the last 12 to 18 months, I'm really noticing the fact that they're trying to make it obvious and they don't seem to have a worry about it. They don't seem to have any care about it. There's certainly no shame about it. And this is where the Western world has its best show for music in terms of the Eurovision. That's the best Ireland had to offer. Ireland, the great Emerald Island, the Catholic Church in Ireland. I know it's went through some hard times and a lot of stuff's come out that was wrong once upon a time. But I say to people when you look into it, it's not the Catholic Church, it's the culture. It was the time of people. Whether you look from Jimmy Savile to a priest, whether you look at the fact that all the cover-ups that's going on, it's a cultural thing. And the Catholic Church has a lot to blame for that as well, absolutely. But it's as if it's lost its moral stance now amongst many. And those who are angry, and those who are against the church, and all the enemies are using it. But what happened to the days of Johnny Logan? I only discovered him several years ago, and that song, Hold Me Now, I think is brilliant. And it's like, the remnant church in Ireland is strong, but look what you're up against when this is the best Ireland has to offer in 2024. Right, so I've said enough about the fall of the West, the moral decays and all this with the Eurovision. I'm thinking out loud here. This came about 2 days before May 13th, which by the time you're watching this is recording on May 12th, Sunday. Tomorrow is May 13th, the anniversary of Fatima. Now, how does Fatima link to the Eurovision? Well, it doesn't really, but the one thing that is standing out for the last couple of days as well is this great solar storm, and it's on the news channels, it's getting a lot of publicity. People from Canada and America to Ireland and the UK, different parts of Europe, and even people in New Zealand at the other end of the planet are all speaking about seeing great northern lights in the sky for the past 2 days running because of this great powerful solar storm that's came for the first time in 20 plus years. Now, the reason that come to mind with that, it's a beautiful thing to see the northern lights. We know it's just particles floating about and we know the source of it's coming with the solar storm this time around. But at the same time, go back to, I believe it was 1938. Lucia Fatima saw the sign in the sky and it was the Northern Lights. Going back years beforehand, the Blessed Mother told her that when you see a strange light in the sky, it's a sign from God that the world is about to be punished for its crimes. And of course, years later, Lucia is a nun, and from her convent window she sees the aurora lights, and of course it made the newspapers all over Europe about the strange northern lights that has never been seen in such a way and such power, and the fact that it was all over the continent. Shortly after that sign, Hitler was invading Austria. Hitler was sitting with his plans which led to World War II. Now, with a clear reality check in the fall of the West, just coming through a song contest. At the same time, these powerful northern lights coming around the world this time, not just Europe, around the world, more powerful than the one Lucia of Fatima saw. And that was the prophesied sign Our Lady gave. It was the northern lights that everyone saw. So God does send us signs in the heavens and the skies. And I know I did a video a couple of weeks ago with Monique, with an unknown alleged seer who was talking about all this stuff. She gave different time, different things, and all the rest of it. No one seems to be afraid with this stuff. They just say, "Oh, look how beautiful it is." Pictures are coming up everywhere on social media. People are sharing it. Friends are sharing it all over. And I haven't seen any, unfortunately. But I'm like, no one seems to be making the link that this is May 13th, tomorrow from this recording. We're seeing this Northern Lights across the entire world. At the same time, the West has fallen like never before, and there's no way back without divine intervention. And all along, we're getting threats from Russia. Now, look what's just been said in the last couple of weeks regarding Russia and what they're ready to do. Putin's pal sends chilling threat saying Russia will sink the UK with nukes if NATO intervenes. Now, I want to just go further down to the main part here. Vladimir Putin will flood Britain under a nuclear tidal wave if NATO sends troops into the Ukraine, a pal of the Russian president has claimed. I'm not going to even try his name there. Dmitry warned everything would be launched in response to the military alliance, putting boots on the ground. He says, speaking on Russian TV, if NATO countries send their troops into Ukraine in order to inflict a strategic defeat on Russia, then the very moment about which Putin once said, quote, "Why do we need the world if there is no Russia in it?" would come. Then everything would be launched by us in every direction. Sarmats, Yars and Avangard's. This must be all the different missiles. He added US centres of decision making as well as launchers on land and at sea are already in Russia's sights. Putin's top media crony said, France as a nuclear power will have to be disarmed instantly. The British Isles will simply go underwater. We have all the required technology for this, but it's better not to let things get to that point, I'll say. So there we are. Russia was the keystone of prophecy regarding a country going back to Our Lady of Fatima. It wasn't Europe, it wasn't America, it wasn't a particular country other than Russia. What goes around comes around. This full circle, like even as Francis Hogan said something differently on the video, the cycles, the jubilees coming around. Others, the prophecies you can see as well. Apparently, I was told years ago that I've never read it. There was a prophecy that Britain would sink beneath the waves, and it seems to be attributed to either St. Columba or St. Patrick of Ireland. Remember, St. Columba came from Ireland to Scotland as well, but they prophesied that Britain would sink beneath the waves. And if that's true, back then the only way I could think that could happen was maybe through like the seas and the rough waters causing erosion, which has been an issue at certain points of the country over the years. But then again, the land's been around for thousands, if not millions of years. Why would it happen sometime in the future? Unless we're getting polar shift stuff like Hollywood movies, 2012, The Day After Tomorrow, etc. But here's the prophetic country all along that we're coming into the new Jubilee of 2025, and it's coinciding with everything I've done more than a dozen times, focusing on the numbered popes of Garabandal, focusing on the time of the two popes I've just went through. We're in the new era with the papacy, we're in the new Jubilee, and we're seeing a great synod underway. And that reminds me, I have also been told by an anonymous source who is studying through one archdiocese in Scotland that there is a public meeting coming around, I think in June, and it's to discuss the new liturgy that will be brought into effect in the church. this Advent coming at the end of 2024. It's going to be all-inclusive language, all-inclusive liturgy. And of course, we've had Xavier Alon speaking about sources where the liturgy's already changed in the Amazon, thanks to the Amazon Synod and everything else. Now we're going all-inclusive for the West. What does that mean? When you hear all-inclusive, does that sound church or does that sound world? So we have a civilization that's imploding on itself in the West, and I haven't even get into the migrants yet. I've loved John Henry Weston's video the past couple of weeks where he's focusing a lot with the Jews and the Antichrist and geopolitical stuff as well. You bring everything into the mix and you really see we are in prophetic times. We really are seeing the build-up where evil is just showing itself on our screens, in our TVs, on our phones, on our laptops. We're hearing it, we're seeing it, and it's unashamedly coming forward without hiding anymore. And that's what's really stood out for me, and how parents don't seem to find worry with their kids watching and listening to this stuff. And then at the same time, we're seeing this war with Ukraine, and we're seeing the fact that France is gobbing off, Macron's speaking away, and Russia's warning them. You heard it there in that article. France would need to get taken out first because of its nuclear capability and where it sits central in Europe. But the tsunamis coming to Britain because of nuclear bombs going off in the water round about the Isles. Is that fulfilling St. Columba's prophecy as well? But Our Lady of Fatima warned us that all this would come around. When you see a strange light in the sky, you know it's a sign that the world is about to be punished. And Western world is just getting out there. Oh, look at how beautiful these aurora lights are. Look at all that's happening in Eurovision tonight. And I'll go out and take a photo of the aurora borealis and see how beautiful it is. Get a spiritual feel about it maybe. And at the same time, you're just seeing the state of the West, the state of the world. And then you get Russia threatening nuclear devastation in France, Britain, and the rest of the Western NATO alliance. And people are walking about as if it doesn't matter, it ain't going to happen. Our Lady says in the 1960s that many priests, bishops and cardinals were on the road to perdition and were leading many souls with them. Do you think that's get better or worse since the 60s? Do we see the focus of the innocence, particularly in the children like she warned about in Quito, Ecuador? Are we seeing all that happening? And then you see how Ireland has fallen, and that's the best they could offer. I could go on, but I think you get the point. I think when people are asking me, and this is my way of answering many of you, do I think the signs in the sky are pointing to something that's coming very soon? Absolutely. I'm not getting hooked up on it. I'm not thinking, oh, right, this is another little sign. What do I do next? Absolutely not. What I'm doing is realising what Our Lady, the Mother of God, the Queen of Heaven, what she said in Fatima concerning Russia, concerning lights in the sky, which happened, which led to World War II, and now we're doing full circle back, where it ain't communist Russia, it ain't the Soviet Empire, it's the West that's communism. It's Russia that's saying they want peace. It's the West that wants this war. It wants everything changed. The migration that's going on, it's out of control. The countries are starting to fight amongst themselves, including Ireland and Britain and France and others. It's orchestrated to a point where it needs to snap. And I think being in 2024, with all that we're in right now with the time of prophecies on the videos, there is so much context fitting like a hand in a glove right now. And all I can say to do right now, folks, is not to get worried, is not to get sensationalized. Absolutely not. All I'm doing is praying. And the fact that we're coming up for another anniversary of Fatima, with all that's been said in context, we're also coming close to Pentecost next week of this recording. I've got my little novena on the go to the Holy Spirit. Holy Ghost in this one. There are many different ones out there. My wife and I are doing one. Maybe get some videos up on it. And I'm still in a great sense of peace. I'm just keeping that observation and I'm just praying. And after speaking to some people like Francis Hogan, the beauty of the faith, the beauty of belief, and someone that was so excited, even if all hell breaks loose and persecution comes and martyrdom comes, she's excited as seeing Jesus. That's the way we have to be. But we're the ones in the watchtowers. We're the ones keeping the oil lamps lit. And if anyone can't see what's in front of them, pray for the grace that they can. They might end up the next St. Paul, that God converts and uses their courage, their zeal, and whatever else they might have to offer. They are children of the Lord still, including all these lost souls on the platforms, on the fame, the money, the Eurovision, all of them. They're just lost and they're on the wrong path. And this is where our prayers come in. It really is. But you cannot say heaven's not giving us signs, not giving us warnings. It's beyond a doubt. And it's just a waiting game now. It's not something I don't believe I have to wait 50 years for things. I think with this Jubilee year underway, Pope Francis has announced that it's going to be of hope. And we really do need hope. We need hope that God's going to step in and save us from oblivion, but with all these warnings and threats that will happen if it keeps getting pushed. And I think it's going to come about by this year into the end of 2025 for sure. It fits in line with the ancient calendars of Jubilees, as Francis Hogan pointed out in our video. It fits in still where we are with Pope Francis. It fits in with the prophecy with the Synod. It's fitting in with a lot of things. Whereas, something might change. It'll be like, okay, back to the drawing board. But I'm not putting all the eggs in the basket. I'm just seeing so many things. And it's just pushing me more to prayer. Pushing me more to fall in love with the Lord. Pushing more to give Him my availability. As I was saying to Christine Watkins, we don't give God our ability. We give Him our availability. He's the one that does everything. We're the weak ones. But He does everything. And when you fall in love with God, all this stuff, no matter what I've said, it doesn't take away my peace. Thank the Lord. But there's a lot of food for thought there. I never thought I'd do a video linking the Northern Lights to prophecy and Russia and the Eurovision. But I think it's an eye-opener for me to the state of the West after last night's performances. And you used to take for granted that if you go to Spain or Italy, Catholic countries, they were more obviously Catholic than maybe I would be seeing back in Britain to a certain extent, with their statues and where they were placed. Getting off the train station in Rome, there's a big statue of Our Lady between the trains. You wouldn't get that back in Scotland, unfortunately. And then I remember as a little boy, I'm sure the Holy Rosary came out as a CD and it went to #1 in the charts in Spain. The Vatican done the Rosary and it went to #1 in Spain back in the early 90s. What's happened? After you see Spain's performance last night as well, it was horrendous. And it's a socialist country, like most of them are coming across as socialist. It's just a hairbreadth away from the communism, again, that's been prophesied to take over. But you can't take for granted these countries anymore being rich in their faith and strong in their faith. It's not reality. And this is where you can see something's going to have to give, like a cycle of the world, the universe, or whatever. Or as we like to say, God's about to step in again. There's nothing different here that doesn't fit with biblical context and God's ways. My ways are above your ways, just as the heavens are above the skies. And as St. Paul writes, Jesus Christ, obviously we know as God, is the same yesterday, today, and forever. You cannot change perfection. That's why you cannot change God. And what's happening now is what happened before and before and before, all the way back. And we have the Bible to show us the historical facts and the times. And we're in a new chapter of what's coming. But the great hope is our Blessed Mother's given us everything we need and told us what to do, and she's leading us by the hand. So stick to your prayers, stick to the rosary, fall in love with the Lord more and more each day. Stick to prayer, because it's the best preparation that we have. And don't lose your peace for anything. Keep hold, keep the faith, and pray for me, and I'll pray for you. And until next time, take care and God bless.